Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Hey everybody, how you doing? Happy Sunday. Hope everybody is doing well. It's a wet, rainy day here, so if you hear pitter-patter, that's raindrops on the roof. And yeah, it's Oregon. I mean, you know, it's a typical Oregon winter. Anyhow, this too shall pass. Here lately, I have had a lot of comments and questions on a video I did a couple years back about importing STL files in VCarve and Aspire version 11.0 and up. Just as an example of my luck, importing an STL file in version 10.5 and earlier was done one way. 11 and 11.5 was done another way. Then it was simplified in 12.0 to do it another way. So that video is now obsolete. So I've had a few questions about importing at version 12.0, 12.5. So we'll do that today. And we'll see how long this lasts, because the only thing that stays the same is that everything is going to change. So what can I say? But before we get into any of that, I want to say hello, and give a special shout out to my friend Steve over at Harneal Media. Now, I've been singing Steve's praises for years, and I'm going to continue until he tells me to knock it off and shut up. I don't see that happening. I don't know what you think, Steve. Time will tell. But my point remains simple. If you're even toying with the idea of a website, a web store, maybe you have products or services to offer to the public, and you're getting sick and tired of paying listing fees or paying commissions or seeing your competition's work being advertised on the same page yours is being advertised on, there's no better way to take care and take control of your business than with your own website. It gives you your domain, gives you control over it 100%. No listing fees, no commissions, none of that. It gives you freedom. Now, Steve can help you set up a web store where everything goes through, well, all of the major transfer systems, Venmo, PayPal, what have you. Folks can buy digitally online. If you create models, you can sell digital downloads. They work real fast, real easy. I use it, and it works great for me. It's real easy to set up. It's real easy to maintain. It's real easy to keep things going. If you are thinking about sponsorships or maybe some of the affiliate programs that certain websites offer, Amazon, eBay, etc., most of them require you to have your own website that has a track record of being updated and generates traffic. So there's another advantage. It's as easy as that. I mean, Steve is competitively priced, and after a little bit, you wonder how the heck he does it so cheaply. So do yourself a favor. I'm serious here. Reach out to Steve at harnealmedia.com. There's a link to Harneal Media in every live stream and every video on this channel, and it's that way for a reason. Hit harnealmedia.com, click that Contact Us link, and reach out to Steve, and he'll take care of you. Thank you, Steve, for sponsoring MarkLindsayCNC.com. I appreciate you more than you will ever know. So let's go ahead and get into working with STL files. Now, as I mentioned before, everything was fine and dandy until Vectric decided, yeah, no, we're not going to play that game. What we're going to do is we're going to change it. So from 10.5, they went to a little slightly different method of importing an STL file. Then in 12.0, they made other changes. Are there going to be changes in version 13? I have no idea. So I know this works for version 12 and 12.5. So we'll take this with as many pounds or grains of salt as we see fit. But as it sits right now, this is how we're going to do it. So let's go ahead and jump over into the software. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to them just as quickly as I possibly can. So as we can see, I'm working in VCarve Pro here, and this works exactly the same way as it does in Aspire. Something that's important to remember whenever you're working with 3D. Okay, I see 8th center. It says, so this works with Aspire 10.5 onwards too? Not quite. When they went from 10.5 to 11, the method changed. The form changed. That held steady for version 11 and 11.5. Then 12.0 came out, it changed again. Only slightly, but enough to matter. So this works in version 12.0 and 12.5. I know that for sure. I don't know about version 13. So we'll see how it goes. But one thing to make sure of whenever you're working with 3D, whether you're importing an STL file or if you're using some of the clip art here in the clip art library, it doesn't matter what you're using. What matters is your job setup. Now, I've spoken before about modeling resolution, and this remains important. And this depends completely on the model and the use of the model. If you are doing a huge 2-foot diameter star to mount up in the eaves of your house, a big barn star that's going to be seen from ground level looking up at your house, you don't need a lot of modeling resolution. You don't need huge amounts of detail. If it's something that's going to be hanging on the wall, seen at eye level, then usually very high is the modeling resolution you want. You want enough detail in that model that the details can be seen. If we look at, I'm going to go back to standard here, we can see that the model is going to be broken up into 1 million points. Now on this piece of material, 16 by 11, it's going to break up the model into 1 million points and scatter them around the surface. If it's something that's going to be seen at eye level or even held in your hands, we see very high is breaking it up into 4 million points. Smaller pixels equals more detail. So this is important. The reason it's important is once this is set, any model you import is going to be imported at that resolution. If you set it at standard, for instance, click OK, then import a model, it's going to be imported at that resolution. If you go back later on and you change it to something else, it is not going to change the resolution of that model. So it's important that you check the resolution when you do your job setup, because once the model is imported, it stays at that resolution. It will not change. So we'll go ahead and we'll select very high, meaning the model is going to be spread out over 4 million points. And now I'm going to go, there's a few ways to do this. We can use the icon here, import a component or 3D model. Or I can go up here to File, Import Component or 3D Model. Both work identically. It's just one is an icon, one is a menu function. The choice is up to you. They do the exact same thing. Since I'm here, I'll go ahead and click on Import a Model. And I'm going to go way down here in my STL files. Boy, I've got too many files. And I'm going to find, where are we at? This one. This is a STL file I created in VistaSculpt, program called VistaSculpt, that is used to create 3D models from images using AI technology. It's very similar to Vectric's Easy Create, but it is a dedicated program. The jury is still out on which one does a better job. VistaSculpt does give you a lot more control over the model after you've created it, and it's a toss-up as to which AI works better. Just know that it's an option, okay? But we can also see that VistaSculpt works in metric, just simply by the size of the model. Now, I'm going to start up here at the top of the Import 3D Model form. This is the Transform Model section of the import process. Here we're going to look at the initial orientation. Now, this is a flat model, and we're looking at the top here. If I zoom in real tight, we can see this rectangle. That's our piece of material. So we can see how huge this model is. The initial orientation, if this was a different type of model that maybe is a bust of Einstein, let's say. And in this position, we were looking at the base of the model sitting on the piece of material and the bust standing up. We would orient it here. Right now, we're looking at the top of the model. Here, we're looking at the right side of the model. Here, we're looking at the front edge of the model. Now we're looking at the bottom of the model. You see where I'm going. The left side or the back. I want it oriented from the top. That gives me the entire surface that I want to carve into something. And yes, this was designed in millimeters. This was designed in a version of VistaSculpt that did not let you select imperial versus millimeters. It now does. You can select imperial or metric. Now we have the rotation about the z-axis. That means we can spin this plus 90 degrees around the z, or 180 degrees about the z. Go back to 0, or we can go the other direction 90 degrees or 180 degrees. This is all to help you orient the model the correct way. Now, if you zoom in, we can see we've got, I call it the meatball. We've got this globe in the center, this sphere. Then we have these different rings. And I can click on a ring and spin it, and you'll see the model turns in this direction. I'm using that yellow ring. I also have a little text box here. If I need to change it, click. Come on, do it. I want to click on that, then click in the box, and I can change that to, let's say, 45 degrees. And it rotated at 45 degrees around that axis. Or I can go back, Control Z that. It won't Control Z. Okay? I have to go back to that and go back to 0. And tap enter. And that brought me back to that orientation. The reason I'm telling you about all this is, oops, right click button, Mark. This will help you orient that model and get it in the correct position. And you can change it on all 3 of these axes if these don't orient it well enough. Now we're going to get down here to the next section, which is the model size. And this is the one I need badly. I want to make sure I lock my X, Y, and Z ratio. That keeps the perspective correct. I've got my units set to inches. But they also know that some models are created in metric. what I'm going to do is I'm going to click millimeters to inches. And what it's going to do is it's going to take these metric measurements and it's going to convert all three of them to imperial. I just click that button. And now it's still a little bit big. It's 32 by 43. And it's still huge, but not as huge as it was. So what I want to do is I want to take the largest measurement, and in this case it's my X measurement, and I want to size it more appropriately for my material. My material is 16 inches wide, so I'm going to make that 15 inches. And I'll go 15. All the rest of them changed automatically because I have my lock XYZ ratio selected. And I'll click apply. And now the model, does it fit? Left button mark. There we go. It just barely fits. That's not enough. I don't think I had, maybe it was 14 I had. So let's go down to 13. Apply. There we go. Now my model is in my material and I've got a decent margin all the way around it. All right. So my model is now oriented and it's sized correctly. Now from here, this is where a lot of confusion comes in. From here, we can see this outline drawing showing my block of material. Now my material happens to be 3/4 of an inch deep. But if I look, this sticks up above the surface of this block of material. That's fine. That's fine. You can adjust this model thickness after it's imported. What you want to do is make sure the whole model gets imported. So now we're going to go over here and we're going to position and import it. We're finished orienting and sizing the model. Now we're going to click on this button to position and import. And we'll do that. Now what we're looking at is we're looking at the model thickness with regards to this modeling plane here, this gray rectangle. This is the modeling plane. Everything that's going to be imported is going to be in this blue color, and everything below this modeling plane is going to be discarded. So now what we've got to do is we've got to move the modeling plane with relation to the model. Right now, a lot of it is being cut out. So what I want to do is I want to drag this down so that the modeling plane is below the model. Again, you can see it sticking up out of the material. That's okay at this point. That's okay at this point. Again, we can adjust the model thickness after we've imported. But just remember, this is one of the important parts. A lot of people get confused right here. You can choose to only import certain levels of the model, like that, but you're missing everything that's grayed out back here is not going to be imported. We need to move that modeling plane all the way down to the bottom for this model. You may only want a certain section of a model. If it's something that's standing vertical, let's go back to that bust of Einstein. Maybe you just want his head. You can drop that modeling plane down to where it cuts him off at the neck and then just import that part. So know that. Okay. Do we want to create both sides? If you have, for instance, that bust of Einstein, and you have laid him down in the orient in the previous screen, you can lay him down and create both sides of the model. In this case, I don't need to create both sides. It looks hollow now. A flat back will be applied to it when it gets imported. I don't need both sides. So I've not checked that. I want to discard any data below. Now they're calling this the 0 plane. If you want anything that's hanging below this modeling plane is going to be discarded. Okay, doesn't that still ignore the base? Like the modeling plane is right in the middle. Is this the bit that you alter later? You can alter it later if you'd like, but what you need to remember is everything below this modeling plane is going to be discarded. It will not be imported. If you only want a portion of the model to be imported, you can move this plane to wherever you want that cut to be made. Okay? If this modeling plane stays in the middle, like so, the only thing that's going to be imported is what's above this gray plane. So looking at it from the front, all of this blue will be imported, and everything below it will be discarded. So I want that all the way down to the bottom because I want to import the entire model. Highlight undercuts. I can turn this on, and if there are any undercuts in this model, it's going to highlight it and let me know. There are no undercuts in this model. So I'm good there. From there, let's update undercuts. Nothing. So from here, I can import the model. And we'll click import, and it brings it in. And there it is in the 3D view. So once you've done a few, it is actually a fairly simple process. It almost becomes second nature. It's just getting beyond that first step and understanding what the issues are and what each of those screens in the form means. Now, let's say you've made a mistake. Now, I know this works in Aspire. I'm going to find out right now if it works in VCarve Pro. And of course, I do this live. I'm going to go over to the component tree. And there is the component. It's using the STL file's name. If I made a mistake here in the component tree, I can re-import. So it does work in VCarve and Aspire. So let's say I made a mistake with that plane and there was a problem. I cut off part of the model. I didn't import it. Well, I can come over here into the Component tab, right-click on the component name, and go Re-import, and we come back into the import screen. Then I can adjust the modeling plane. That's generally the major mistake, or maybe I forgot to create both sides if I'm going to put this on a rotary axis or something. I can re-import it, fix those mistakes. It puts me into the position part of the form, but I can go back to the transform and size if I want to. Or I can just work in my position and import. So my point is, once it's imported, you can go back and fix any issues that you may have. So that's the process for I started with a flat model just simply because it's easier to do that way. So, and that works. Now let me go ahead and select this and delete it. And now I'm going to import a model that's a bit different. kind of sort of like that, example of Einstein's bust. Before I do that, there we go. Can I move the model after pressing the center model radio button? I'll play with that on my next import. Okay, Brooks. After pressing the center model, yes, you can, but I'll show that in a minute. So let's go up here and let's import a different STL file. I have one in mind for this. You pass all the DXFs. Should have put these in a separate folder. Where is it? Where are you? There you are. We have an owl. Right away, you can see it's huge. We can also see that it's sitting upright. So again, I have to look at my orientation. Now, you don't have to take this in order. I can come down here and I can resize this if I want. But I should orient it before I resize it because, again, the material is going to dictate what I get here. So let's look at the right side. I don't want to do it from the top down, not with a piece of 3/4 inch material. So let's move it to the right. No, not necessarily. Let's look at the front. No, that's not going to work. Look at the bottom. That ain't going to work. Let's look at the back. Not really. This may work looking at the left side, but I'm going to have to rotate it. So let's see. Let's rotate this way. No, that's not going to work. 180 degrees. No, that's not going to. That might work there. But now that's telling me. Let's see. Front. No. It's not really going to work. Let me use these here. I'm going to spin this around like so. I'm going to go with, let's click, and let's go with 90 degrees. Delete 90 degrees. Hit enter. That's going to work okay. The question is, I'm going to go ahead and center the model. So the center of the model is right here with the, in the center of the material. Click center model. The question is, can I reposition it after I've hit the center model? And the easy answer is yes. I can right click. Nope, I can't do that. I thought I could right click and move it. Can you move it? Yes. You can change position over here. As far as moving the position after you have, no, I guess you can't. Now we're looking at the front. I guess you can't move the model after you've hit center. We can change the orientation, but we haven't actually positioned it yet. Now I need to resize it. My material, I believe I said 15, so I'm going to go to 14 in X because that's my longest. So let's go with, no, I'm going to go with 13 again. I don't know where that came from. We'll click apply, but it's still 5 inches tall. I selected this one for a reason. That's the best I can do, really. Now I'm going to position and import. Now's when I can change the position. If I bring this all the way down, the model is completely out of that modeling plane. But I've got undercuts galore. Everything in red is an undercut. There's no way that's going to be able to work. So I'm going to have to move this model around Zoom out here. And I'm going to have to change the orientation just a little bit to get rid of some of these undercuts, because half of his face is gone. This whole side of his head is gone. All of this is gone. This isn't going to work. And everything down here is an undercut. Now I might be able to fix that. But let's say I wanted just the top half. I don't want this to stand up. I want this to I just want the top half of this. I can set my modeling plane to the center and take a look. Now everything below that modeling plane right here, this 0 plane, all of that is going to get discarded. So let me bring this up a little bit more. I just want to make sure, spin this around a little bit. I don't want to cut this off, but I'm cutting into this well around his eye a little bit. So I'm at 2.63. Let me go 2.75. And tap enter. So that brought it up a little bit. That brought that circle around his eye out. But I still have undercuts. So let me go back. And I'm going to rotate him using this red ring. Nope, that's the one I already changed. Which one am I going to use? No, that is the one I want to change. I want to bring him up just a little bit. Let's rotate him this way. Just a bit. And now I'm going to go back over to position and import. And I'm going to, let's see, I've got 2.7512. Let me see about this. We'll click on undercuts. I still have a lot right in here. Now, Maurice over at Erickson Design and Woodworking, a great project for a 4th axis. This would be a good project for a rotary axis. The thing is, we have to get everything positioned. If it's going to be on a rotary axis, the axis is going to turn it so we can get to these, and these will no longer be undercuts. But if I want to cut this as flat, what I have to know is all of this is not going to be cut. If I spin it around the other direction, do I have undercuts here? Yes, I have undercuts here too. The point that I'm making is there may be sacrifices as far as detail are concerned with this particular model. So there is another option that I haven't explored yet, so I don't feel qualified to talk about it. And that is segmenting this import. We'll get into that in another episode. But if I'm just looking at the top here, rotating this like so, I have to know that that's not going to be carved. That is not going to be carved. Some of this is not going to be carved. All of this area under the tips of the feathers, that may not matter. Some of this may not be carved. Where it dips down, it wraps around. So my point in this is not every STL is appropriate for import for what we're trying to do. Now I can go back and I can rotate him a little bit more and see if we can get rid of some more undercuts. But am I creating more undercuts by doing that? Let's change him around 76 and give that a shot. Position and import. Highlight undercuts. Still got a few here. Still got a few there. I might be able to rotate him until those undercuts are gone. But, again, if I'm only wanting the top half of this, what I can do is discard the data below the 0 plane, and let's go ahead and import it and see what we get. We're going to discard the data below the 0 plane, import, and this is what we have. Okay. Now we can see these areas right here that are not going to be carved because the bit can't get down in there to them. The areas under the feathers, not so bad. I mean, that'll work. And it is a thick model, but again, we can go into the properties, excuse me, and adjust that model thickness. So one of the things I'm trying to get across is the fact that not every STL file is good for this type of carving. So let's go back, and I'm going to re-import it. Now, what if, as Maurice says, what if we are doing this for a rotary axis? Rotary axis is, it's quite possible that we might be able to get this set up right and carve the whole thing. Let me close out of here. I'm going to cancel. And I'm going to delete this. We're going to re-import it in another direction because something that has to be done before we can import a rotary job is we got to go into job setup and we need to make it a rotary job. So we'll click on that. And now what I have to figure on is what is the diameter of my material. It's 16 inches long. That's fine. Diameter, I'm going to go with 5-inch diameter piece of material. And I'm going to look down here. I'm going to, I set my Z0 position on my rotary axis to the cylinder axis, the center of the cylinder. XY datum position is going to be the center. Actually, it would be lower left, but for this purposes, I'm going to use the center. And my rotary axis is parallel to the Y. So we're going along the Y axis. I am still going with very high. We'll click OK. So now I have a rotary job going here. There's nothing in the 3D view to see. So now again, I'll go import that owl. And we'll bring it back. Let's check it out. Where are you? Probably down with the O. There's the owl statue. Open. Okay, now we can see the difference when we're looking at a rotary job. The import is done differently. We can see we have a round piece of material here, and that's going to help us out as far as orienting the piece and orienting the model. Okay? And it's a different form completely. Now we're still going to be looking at the orientation, and it remembers the last one I used. Now, this was obviously done in metric because the model diameter is not 86 inches and the model length is not 150 inches. So it was drawn in metric. So what I want to do is I want to scale the model to fit the material size. Ba-boom. Now my model is centered in my material. Okay? The red is my material size. The blue is the model dimensions. You can see it's already added a little post right here. This post is an axis that goes all the way through the model. Okay? If you see this red post anywhere on any surface of the model, that means the bit is going to carve through that model at that point, and it's going to carve down into the center axis. So what I'm doing is I'm rotating to see if I see that red cylinder anywhere on the surface of the model, and I see it right there. I see it right there. So what I have to do, I have one of two things. Either I'm going to know that this little area here is either not going to be carved, or I'm going to see that little bit of that cylinder. So what I have to do is I have to move this. I have to rotate this model just slightly off of the center line so I don't see that red spot there. So I'm going to grab this green circle here, and I'm going to see if this is the correct one. That's not it. That's turning it on center. That's not the right one. Let me grab the red one. There we go. We see how it got bigger. Now I want to rotate that back until that red spot goes away. Now come on. I want to rotate that until that red spot goes away. It's not going to go away. Am I going the wrong direction? Let's go this way. No. I want to go back this way. There we go. All right, now let me zoom out. And we'll see that that red rod is going all the way through. But this is slightly off kilter. It's not straight. That was necessary to get this done. But what it's also done is it's made the orientation of this. Now this is bigger than the, now it's bigger than the piece of material. So, scale it again. It made the model slightly smaller. Now we see the center line going this way. This is the center of the axis. So it's going to be cut off center. There's not much I can do about that. I've got to do... if you carve it like this, that red bit would end up being a hole then. No, it would just be cutting to the center of the model. It's letting you know that that part wouldn't be cut out. It wouldn't be carved. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the center of the model hidden and embedded within the model itself. Or the center line of the axis, rather. It doesn't have to be perfectly balanced. It just all... The center of the model, the center line has to be within the model. Are you saying the bit will never go lower than the center axis? No, not necessarily. What we're saying is part of the model is below the center. It's going to depend on your post-processor, and it's also going to depend on your machine. It just might not cut that, or it may cut too deep. So you have to be aware. If, for instance, I left it like it was, so I had that red spot there, it may cut deep. It's going to cut deeper than the center. It might cut deeper than the center. I have to make sure I got something back here to hold it so it doesn't just cut through the whole thing and break it. Okay? We want the whole model to be cut, but we don't want to go through it and cut through if there's no material. If there was no material back here, we didn't want it to cut through. So, all right, so I finally got that. I finally have it positioned. And you'll notice there is no position and import. There's only OK, because it's going to import this set for the Rotary project. We're orienting up here, then we're scaling it here to fit our material, and then that's it. We click OK, and there is our model. It's flattened out to show that on a flat plane. If I come up here and I click on that, it shows me the imported model. The ears don't look the best, but that's the best we can do. Yeah, the ears look pretty funky. That looks pretty funky. Still, even for Rotary, it's not the best model to use. Now, in Aspire, you could get in and touch these up, but not here. Not in VCarve. We also have other issues down here. Let me lay it out flat again. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let me grab this, put it in move and transform mode, and slide it up my material just slightly. No, it resized my material. I forgot about that. Let me Control Z that. It resized the material. Then go back to the 2D view. No, it's in the center. It did okay. So from here, what I would have to do is I would have to add 3D tabs. That's the easiest way to do it in VCarve. 3D tabs here and here, and size them accordingly so that they would be held in the chuck and by the tailstock. 3D carving in VCarve it can be done, and it does okay, but there are so many things that you can't do. For instance, this cut right here, and all this right here, and then this weird beak, and then the weird looking tufts over its eyes. In Aspire, that could be repaired. But we're not going to do that. What I'm going to do is go back to the top, and I'm going to re-import it and see if there's anything I can do that'll fix that. Let's re-import. All right, now, something else that is missing here is highlight undercuts. Now, part of the problem with those ears is the tufts up here. Is if we look at the model, once one of these is carved, is the bit gonna be able to get down in here to make these, or is it? Let's see. Obviously, beaks and ears to AI is the same as fingers and toes. Yeah, well, it doesn't even. I see. Yeah. I've seen a few AIs that are still giving people 3 arms, you know, or you see a 5th leg on a dog or something like that. So let's look at this a little bit and see what's going on. Could this be caused by this being off center? Let's take a look. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Let's see if I can get that placed. There's there. And let's see if I can place this closer to the center. But when I do that, I'm going to bring that dot back, I have a feeling. So let's go here. And yes, I have brought that back. Now let's see what that looks like within VCarve. We're good, we're good, we're good. Okay. And not much better. Not much better at all. The owl's eyes are better. They're much better. But let's look down here at that area that's being cut in between the feet. You can see it's not going, and there's that little bulge from that center point. Now, it's not bad in this case. It's not bad in this case. The main problem is this up here. Now, some of this is simply because it's not able to carve the top. It has to come in from the sides. It can't go down here and carve this away because that breaks it loose. So it can't carve this out completely to give the nice sculpted head. Same thing back here. It can't cut through completely because it's going to break loose. So it has to leave some material there. And this is the problem with just about all 3D carves on a rotary, wouldn't you say, Michael? If you're looking to do something like this, you have to be very aware of the fact that the bottom may not be perfectly flat, and you are going to have to do some hand sculpting up here simply because the bit's not able to get up here and carve these details. Because if it does, it's going to break it loose. Now, if you were going to 3D print this STL, it's perfect. Doesn't need any modification. But you have to know that anything that you carve like this, you're going to have to do some hand sculpting up here with a Dremel or something like that. And you're probably going to do some hand sculpting down here. Or if you're like me, you just fire up your belt sander and zip that right off. So, everything else, the beak looks decent. The eyes look decent. The feathers look decent. Again, there is that bulge here caused by the fact that that's that center line going through the model. This could work. So, and yes, Michael did, he did confirm what I thought. So, yeah, the other, where'd it go? Yeah, Pete over at Nature's Live Edge says simple solution, 5-axis CNC. Yeah, that's a simple solution. And if you get a 5-axis CNC, you're not using VCarve or Aspire. And I don't know what they charge per seat for Mastercam anymore, but I know it does 5-axis carving. So if you get a 5-axis CNC, you are so far above my pay grade, I can't even see you because we're not in the same solar system anymore. So, but it is an option. Just putting it out there. Okay, we had here, oh, I already had Brooks's question about being able to move it after you've hit the center. The answer was no, not that I saw. Can't move it after you've centered the model. You just re-import it. So, all right, well, that is importing an STL file. Again, for Rotary, it's completely different. Hello. Let me go over here. Let's do that. There we go. Delete. Some things are easier to do in the 2D view. Again, it depends on if it's a flat STL or if it's something that you're planning on doing on Rotary. If you're going to do double-sided, I don't have an example STL for that. But let's say if I took that Dodge Challenger, the first one I did, and I had another STL that was a mirror of that, you know, and I wanted to do two-sided. I would set up a two-sided job. I would import that, and in the import, let me get back to it here. Zip. And find that Challenger. Got to go way down to the bottom. There it is. Ba-boom. Let's say here, no, I want to do the top. Oops, cancel. This is not a Rotary job. Let's go back to let's do a double-sided job. You're not going to let me do a double-sided job? Okay, single-sided. All right, fine. Fine. Just fine. All right, now let's import the Challenger. I don't know what's going on, why it wouldn't let me do double-sided. There we go. Maybe it just doesn't like me. And I'll make that what I do before. I made it 13. Apply. My orientation is correct. Oh, that's what's going on. It changed my material size. Okay, that's not a problem. I'm going to center the model. I'm going to position and import. I'm going to go way down here to drag it all the way. And if I was doing, again, I would create both sides. That would allow me to do the import, to create both sides. Yeah, that's what I gathered. I needed to close it to change it to double-sided. Yeah, that's what I thought. Import, and shaboom. And it's big, but that's all right. Totally off topic, but I'm going to throw it out here anyway. You can see here what appears to be pits and holes. Same down here. This is something that I've discovered and is holding true so far in just about every AI-created 3D model. It does not like chrome. It does not like reflections. So this is a bumper, and these are reflections. It sees all these reflections as low spots. So it's going to cut, it's going to import it and make them low spots. Same here. That was a reflection. That was reflection. That's why it looks so rough around here. In Aspire, you can take care of those. You can sculpt that out. In VCarve, there's not a lot you can do. You're pretty much done. So the thing, that is just basically to say, be aware that there are limits to all programs, but there are especially 3D limits within VCarve. Your only modeling tools are create a vector boundary around it, which I'll do right now. Create a cross-section vector, which could be fun. Slice the visible model. Apply a smoothing filter. Scale the Z height. Or add a zero plane. Those are your only modeling tools. There's no sculpting. You can't add draft. None of that. Hashtag not sponsored. If you are going to be serious about 3D models and 3D modeling, it's time to step up to Aspire. Again, I'm not sponsored. I get nothing by saying that. I just speak with experience. If you're going to get serious about 3D modeling and you want to stand out to the crowd, it's time to step up to Aspire. There are so many things that you can do. Even AI-created models are not perfect. So that's about it there. Let me go back and make sure I didn't miss any questions. Let me see here. You're very welcome, Brooks. The only thing I would suggest is to pay particular attention to what you're going to be importing and what you're going to try to be carving. Because the rotary axis, I just wish I could get to my rotary axis now and I had a camera set up on it. You have to allow for that chuck to, I mean, I've got a 4-jaw chuck. I have to allow for that to have something to hold on to while it's carving. And I also have to be mindful of where my tailstock is going to go. So no matter which way you orient it, or set your zero location, rather, the cylinder surface or the cylinder axis, just know that it's not going to cut through at the top, or it's going to fight it. It may cut through at the top, and you may have to add 3D tabs to keep it from cutting. The point is, be mindful that you're going to probably have to do some sculpting at one end or the other, possibly both. So, and that owl was not a good model. Let's see here. I had a question on the owl, Mark. What if you want the base to cut so the model after carving sits properly upright? Then again, you have to import it so that all of that model is above that modeling plane. The problem with that is, well, let me just do it. Let's bring this back. Let's get rid of the Challenger. We'll get rid of the vector that I drew around it, and let's import it. Are you on rotary or flat? Right now, I'm importing it flat. And let's go find the owl. Okay. Now, okay, on the rotary example. Okay, let me cancel this. We'll go back up here and we'll do a rotary job. I'm going to leave everything else the way it was. Everything is just fine. And we'll click OK. And now we'll go back and we'll import the owl. And I got to look at your question again. There we go. The question again. What if you want the base to cut so the model after carving sits properly upright? Oh, I get it. Okay. It's possible it will cut all the way down here, but you got to remember your tailstock on your rotary axis is right there. And you do not want that bit cutting through that tailstock. You don't want to crash like that. You're either going to screw up your tailstock, break a bit, or both. Because with this much material to carve here, you're looking at using a 1/2 inch bit. And I don't want to see who comes out on top in a fight with a 1/2 inch diameter end mill and a tailstock. You had to angle it so the red bit wasn't showing, but it left the base that was wonky after. Yeah, and that's what I mean. The bit, no matter where this is, the bit is not going to be able to go all the way through this because your tailstock is here. So you are going to have to hand sand or cut or do whatever. That's just the nature of the beast. Your bit is not going to be able to cover that much territory unless you're using a large bit. And if you do use a large bit for roughing, for example, it's going to leave some material here around that tailstock because you don't want to crash that bit into the tailstock. So you're going to have to do some hand cutting or hand sanding. Or, again, belt sander, like I said, that's what I would do. I have a belt/disc sander, and that's how I would take care of it. So did that answer that? Come on. Show me the top. So let's take a look at, yeah, it's not going to cut all the way to the middle because the tailstock has to go there. Well, I do get what you mean. It did cut it wonky. You're right. It did import wonky. But it can't. It has to. Couldn't you make the material longer so you have more distance from the tailstock? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But that still is not going to cut a flat bottom. Is what I'm getting at. Creative Woods Design. says you can shift the model straight back or to the front to center it, but you will lose some diameter in your shop. Well, or you will lose some diameter in the material, yes. But in other words, Jack says, in other words, you will have to cut it flat by yourself after the carve is done. Yes, you will. You'll have to cut it flat. And it's under the reason it was wonky after I, whoops, not do that. There we go. The reason this bottom was cut wonky is because once I adjusted this so that this red spot wasn't here, this was no longer sitting flat. It was at an angle. So it's cutting the angle as best it could from this direction. Then as it rotates, it cuts the angle the best it can in this direction. So it's no longer sitting, so it is an angled piece. So you're going to have to flatten it out yourself after the fact. So, okay. Rotary is another critter entirely. I mean, the hardest part for me in adjusting to rotary carves was I had to stop thinking in inches and start thinking in degrees. And that's a whole nother animal, I'm here to tell you. Because while the rotary part isn't really difficult, it basically all it's doing is it's flattening out one axis and showing that flat, and then transferring that to wrap that around either your X or your Y, depending upon how your machine is set up and how your rotary is oriented. In my case, mine is oriented with the Y instead of the X. So, I suppose you could set it to spin and use a hacksaw to cut it near flat before sanding. Yeah, you could. There's a lot of different ways to do the same thing. Let's see. Kurt Crafty Jan says, or a bandsaw with a jig. Yeah. Jack says, finish it up on the jointer. Sure. Just thought you could still add a second tool path to cut it flat or something. You could, but again, you might, but again, you're dealing with the tailstock because something has to support that tail end. Unless you remove that tailstock out of the way and try to machine it that way. But then you take your life in your own hands. You know what I mean? I don't advise that. Personally, I don't like that. Even with a 4-jaw chuck up at the end. Because a spinning bit is a little bit different than a bowl gouge or something like that, you know, on a lathe. And there's another option, because when you take it out of the chuck, you will still have that piece that was chucked in the headstock. If you want to chuck it in a lathe and smooth that out yourself, if you're a turner, there's another one. So. When you shrunk it down, you had plenty of tailstock by the look. What I mean by tailstock is see, I'm getting ahead of myself anyway. I haven't even set up my rotary yet. Yeah, set up your rotary. What I mean by tailstock is not the amount of stock left at the bottom end. I mean the physical piece that comes up and holds, your chuck holds one end, the tailstock holds the other end. And usually it's a live center, which is what I have on mine. You can't see it. It's shoved all the way up to the chuck just to get it out of the way. But the tailstock supports the one end. The chuck not only clamps it, it supports the other end. And that's the end that does the actual turning. The tailstock is usually a live center that spins with it, but it's driven by the material you've got between centers. So you've got this big chunk of steel that prevents that bit from, or maybe it doesn't. Set up your rotary. You'll see what I mean. So that's in the way. So, exactly. Tailstock is a work holding, not the material. Yes. So, all right. I guess I don't see any other questions unless I missed some up here. Uh, Basically, my point in this was to show that I don't remember if it was 11.0 or 11. I think it was 11.0. The two-page import was introduced, and then it was slightly different again in 12.5. Is it going to be different in 13? I have no idea. We haven't even they haven't even created a beta testing forum for version 13 yet. So I have no idea. And Vectric holds their cards pretty close to the chest. The user group meeting is going to be in Nashville in October. I may be being premature with this, but I don't see them having 13 ready by the time the user group meeting rolls around. I may be speaking prematurely. It's only January, but usually they're in beta by now, and they're not. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. They don't tell us when it's coming out. We just get an email that says, hey, come test this. And then we set about trying to break it. Ain't that right, Michael? And it's fun. So anyhow, yeah, if you have any questions about this or anything else, please feel free to put them in the comments. It's February. Wow. Thank you, Steve. On the spot already. Yeah, it's the 8th. I should know that. Anyway, Steve, I have problems remembering what I had for dinner last night. I mean, that's what I got a calendar for. Next week, by request, I'm going to get into importing SKP files from SketchUp, importing SketchUp files into VCarve and Aspire. I'm going to focus on VCarve because that's what the person who suggested, it's what he uses. So I'm going to go for it that way. We're going to import SKP files into VCarve Pro. So that'll be next Sunday. Tomorrow, channel members, finally, Michael Bernasconi and myself, we're going to get into creating layered projects in, he uses Aspire, I'll use VCarve. We're going to get into creating multiple layered projects of the shadow box style. Some of you who are in the members only WhatsApp group, you saw a preview yesterday where Michael showed a sea turtle shadow box. We're going to get into designing those, and promises to be a great show. So also channel remembers, yes, some of you are remembers. You have joined twice. Also, channel members, remember, coming up Thursday, we have another excursion in Tinkercad for 3D printing, and y'all have been killing it with the 3D printing, just having too much fun. And if the rest of you are noticing a shortage of filament, my group is at fault, but I love it. Anyhow, tomorrow, again, we're going to do that shadow, multi-layered shadow box presentation. Yeah, Ellen, I know you've been waiting for it for months. I have too, because I have more ideas than a tail feather on a turkey farm. So we'll get into that tomorrow, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. Look at my posts/memberships tab on my YouTube channel for the link. If you have your email set up, you already received an email. I think that's it for today. Going through the Rolodex in my brain and making sure I didn't miss an index card. I think I've got it all. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. I surely appreciate it. And y'all take care. Have a great afternoon. Go make chips. or sit down and eat some chips. Entirely up to you. Have a good one.